So how much of it do you think was doing shit for the sake of doing shit?
With Zappa, there's an argument that literally everything was. Literally everything. He just really loved music and he wanted to push it to a certain limit.
Mm-hmm.
And at a certain point, he wanted to push it technically to a point where humans couldn't play it. And he just, got computers and shit to do it for him.
Synthesizer. Yeah, I'd say it was all just for the hell of it. I'd say Zappa was a true artist in the sense that he purely did what felt right to him. It was like he heard things in a very particular way. That was just how his mind worked, and he acted upon it, you know? He just thought of shit differently.
Like, who else had a fucking electric marimba at the Prague show? Like, who else was writing marimba parts for their rock band?
That's true, but in what sense was his experimentation different from a band like, say, Yes? Let's go off that one.
I think I did listen to some Yes on the way over here. There's a certain way that Zappa wrote that's just distinctly himself. And there's a certain way that Yes, I think, are more of a band. I'm not sure. I don't know a lot about the way Yes writes songs. But I assume from what it sounds like, it's more like a band kind of input. Multiple people are kind of writing it or jamming it out. Because, I'm thinking like the ending of like Starship Trooper or something where it's just like a jam guitar solo.
Nobody's writing anybody else's parts.
Yeah, Zappa, I think, only wrote one song with someone else. And he only wrote it was the song Uncle Remus off of Apostrophe. His keyboardist George Duke wrote the music and Zappa wrote the lyrics, and that's it. In his entire discography. He really set down the man's was a workaholic. If you read his book, he talks about how I would just literally, when I'm not on tour, I'm literally writing 24/7, sleeping only when I have to. Just writing out scores of music just constantly.
He was a workaholic.
It almost seems like, especially in his later work, in his later years, that he just kind of knew that he didn't have a lot of time, so he just wanted to write as much as he could. I don't think that really answers the question. It's really hard. It's hard to explain how different it is without comparing the two sounds, and I don't like doing that.
Yeah.
I'm not acquainted with either, so this is just me asking a question.
Yeah.
I think more plainly, less on a physical explanation, but just in a spiritual sense, I think Zappa just got something that Yes didn't get.
And vice versa, I think Yes had something that Zappa didn't get.
Yeah.
It's just the way kind of how all bands of the same genre sound different. Like how my favorite example of the prog bands is Pink Floyd gets lumped in with the prog bands. They sound nothing like any other prog bands.
Oh, yeah.
I have a follow-up question in more modern terms. Agis and Connor, I know both of you write both independently and with groups. How do you feel like experimentation differs when writing by yourself versus with other people?
A damn good question.
It is.
Yeah. If you think of something before I do.
Well, I already had my answer.
I don't know how to give a productive answer. I've got my stupid answer, but if
Well, you can give a stupid answer.
On the spirit of Zappa, a stupid answer would be great.
Yeah.
I have to do less work sometimes.
There you go. Well, I mean, I've been fortunate in the sense that everybody that I write with is on the same page as me. We're with the equal amount of insane. So when I've made stuff by myself, it's like all the records I've made have just been by myself, minus a couple things where somebody will just have been around while I was recording, and then I make it into a song. I mean, it's no holds barred, because music is my little playground, my little sandbox that I can do whatever I want, whatever I think sounds good. That's what gets on the record, and that's what happens. And I'm fortunate where work with people who are on the same page. They're just like, let's do something wild. Let's do something irregular.
Let's all try to make a sound, as Connor explains it with jam sessions we've done, that we haven't made before.
Correct. And of course, I mean, there is discussion where it's, it's like, I was thinking this piece should go on, this part should go here. And it's like, that could be interesting, but what if it was this other crazy fucking thing? And then, but it's still some crazy fucking thing that gets on there. I don't know. I mean, I've been fortunate where it's just like working with other people, it just gets better because I like working with myself because I know myself the best. But it's also, it's like if other people have some idea for a thing, then go for it. I don't know. Never really had any argument with working with people, but I've only worked with a handful of people at the same time.
That's fair.
Most of the time we're just on the same pages. Let's turn on the microphones and jam.
See what happens.
And then we go from there.
That's what makes Zappa so interesting to me is that like never happens in his discography, like ever.
Yeah.
It is just purely one person.
Yeah.
With that one exception. It's just one person writing scores of music. And like for his last tour, his last band was like over like a dozen people just writing like however many compositions he had for that many people night after night. Mm-hmm. It's wild.
Yeah.
Even with just the one person controlling the musical vision, he's still able to let instrumentalists shine. Let people take solos, show off their personality. And that's increasingly becoming my ideal workflow. I got started like doing everything myself and teaching other people the parts, very classical. And I've slowly evolved more into, I think, the Zappa style band leader, where I recognize that, I mean, I could write out everything everybody has to do, but if somebody can write something more interesting, if I know their personality, then I'm going to like give them something to kind of do their thing.
Yeah, that's a good place to be.
This is specifically with Impulse Machine. I always have the vision, but I know when other people are going to be on the same page. And I also know when I'm not going to be able to communicate the vision sufficiently. I'm going to have to do it myself and then see what they can add later, maybe, or just leave it and let it change live.
Yeah.
I have a weird relationship with working in groups. I don't know if it's just my leadership style, but I do like taking a backseat every once in a while. This suits me as a vocalist because vocalists don't often lay down the foundation of the song. It's kind of a decoration on top, and often it takes the spotlight, but it's still like for both of my other projects, I'll receive an instrumental and be able to add my personality, and it feels like that relationship's flipped in a way that's pretty positive, because with both of my other bands, we're on the same page about like 90% of the things. It's just kind of a matter of fleshing out in whatever way is our method, whether that's studio recording or it's jamming. It's a lot less stress, a lot more fun, but it's also, I don't know. I've got more room to express myself in some ways because I don't need to worry about balancing the vocals, because I know other people are going to balance me by their nature.
Mm-hmm.
So I do have a question for everybody in this room, because we all play with groups. In general, as musicians, we all seem to enjoy jam sessions. To what degree is jamming displaying your talents and speaking with your voice and letting other people speak? What is the ratio on that for everybody?
Well, I say this as a drummer. I hate to be narcissistic, but I'm kind of keeping it together.
Now you're being a drummer.
My biggest pet peeve when jamming is when someone endlessly solos over the jam. That is my biggest pet peeve. I really want to try to make something. And I don't want that something to be just somebody's solo with like a interesting backing section. I want someone to like display some riffs, like really like make something melodic.
Anybody can solo if they have enough musical knowledge. Even someone who just knows 2 notes.
Soloing's way easier than playing a riff.
Oh, yeah.
All day. Let alone coming up with a riff on the spot based on what the people around you are playing.
Speaking as, again, someone who got started in the composition side of things, I'm probably the worst jam musician in the room. Yeah, I think it's mostly about listening. Take an assessment of what's going on around you. Should you be holding something down? Should you be soloing? Does it need a solo? And having a general sense of what everyone else is doing, what everyone else has done, what's the pacing of the jam. And that's the hardest part. Just don't get too in your own head. You're not the only musician there.
That's fair. But it's also important to play with enough confidence that your voice shines through, because your voice is essential in a jam session, regardless of what you're playing, even if it's the triangle. You should view yourself as being in the forefront while still accepting you might need to take a step back and let other people shine.
I think of it as the opposite. It's like a jam should be a very egoless thing, where it's like we're all this unit and we have different parts that are coming together to create one whole. And so I think it's important to know that you got to stay back. But there's going to be times where you can come forward.
I think the confidence comes from the lack of ego. If you're not putting yourself on the line because you're doing what's best for the sound, then you're going to be confident in your decision to solo, to stay back, to do whatever the song demands, because it's not you. It's the sound, it's the music.
Where do we go from here?
What is the nature of experimentalism, and at what point are you innovating too much, and at what point are you innovating not enough?
What the fuck is innovating too much?
I just say at a certain point, I feel like if you think you're innovating at a certain level, you're probably not if you're just doing random shit. But that's the thing, though. It's art. It's subjective.
Right.
To anybody, anything could be innovative or art. That's the problem. Like, I don't really want to, like, say if something's innovative or not, or say if something's not innovative enough.
It's not up to you as the artist to say.
Yeah.
And I think also part of that innovation, you have to look back on something to know if it was innovative. Like, we could fucking shit into a microphone right now. Who the fuck knows if that's fucking innovative until months, years later, like a decade later. No one's gonna know. To you, that's just experimenting at the time.
Yeah. Well, I think, that's all innovation is just trying something different. Or not even different, just trying something that you think is right, that you think should be good. And it's like, I don't know, the possibility of anything being an innovation always seems like an afterthought.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I do wackadoo shit on my recordings. It'll be like, okay, we have a jam. So what if we made a copy of the jam and had one slowed down and the other one sped up to where it was half the size of that, and put that in reverse, and then play the other one forward, put some stuff on it, and all this shit. And then you do that, and it's like, wait, that sounds good. And it's like, wait, is anybody else doing that? You know?
And at what point does that matter?
Well, I think it never matters.
No.
It only matters to you if you want it to matter to yourself.
It matters because if you have an idea that sounds good and you do it and you think it sounds good, then it's good. You know, it's not up to anybody else to say that something you do is good. You know, it's like you as an artist should be doing what you think is right. And the people who listen are the people who somewhat have an agreeance to that. It's like, oh, this sounds good.
Yeah.
You know?